Captain Han stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber and tried not to look nervous. Around him sat representatives from 47 different alien species, all watching him with eyes that ranged from familiar to completely bizarre. Some had 6 eyes, others had none at all. The chamber was massive, built to accommodate species as small as the cat-sized and as large as the elephant-like. This was humanity's moment. After 3 years of negotiations, Earth had finally been invited to present their case for joining the Galactic Council. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. Ambassador stood at the podium, his voice calm and measured as he spoke. The old diplomat had prepared for this moment for years. Behind him, holographic displays showed images of Earth, its cities, its oceans, and its people, spoke about human achievements, their values, and what they could bring to the galactic community. Lieutenant Hay sat in the human delegation section, monitoring her. She was the crew's, and her job was to observe the alien species around them and note their reactions. So far, most seemed interested but cautious. The council had seen many species come and go. Humans were just another newcomer hopping to prove themselves worthy. Beside her, Dr. Bo Young adjusted his medical scanner. The doctor was fascinated by the variety of life forms in the chamber. Some breathed oxygen like humans. Others required different atmospheric conditions and sat in specialized environmental suits. It was a reminder of just how diverse the galaxy truly was. Ensign Wu stood near the back, his hand resting casually near his sidearm. The young security officer wasn't expecting trouble, but he'd been trained to stay alert. This was the first time humans had been allowed this deep into council space. Everything had to go perfectly. Ambassador was midway through his presentation when the alarms began. The sound was sharp and piercing, cutting through the diplomatic speech like a knife. Red lights flashed throughout the chamber. The holographic displays flickered and died. Around the room, alien representatives began standing up, their various forms of agitation clear even across species barriers. A voice boomed through the chamber in the universal trade language. The translation came through clearly in everyone's communication devices. Emergency, code red, containment breach in xenobiology wing. Specimen has escaped. All personnel evacuate to safe zones immediately. This is not a drill. The word caused instant panic. Han had read about them during the journey to the council station. They were legendary throughout the galaxy as the perfect killing machine. Native to Prime, one of the harshest death worlds ever discovered, that had evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most other species within minutes. An adult stood nearly 3 meters tall and 5 meters long. It had 8 legs, each tipped with claws that could slice through steel. Its body was covered in armored plates that could deflect most energy weapons. Its mandibles could crush bone and metal with equal ease, and its venom was so potent that a single drop could kill most species within seconds. The council kept a few specimens for study, always in maximum security containment. The fact that one had escaped was catastrophic. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives rushed toward the exits. Some species flew, others crawled. The too large to move quickly bellowed in distress. Guards in heavy armor began pouring into the chamber, weapons ready. Hay pulled up the station schematics on her, her fingers flying across the screen. "Captain, the xenobiology wing is 3 sections away. If the is following the main corridors, it's heading this direction." Bo Young checked his scanner. "Life signs are going crazy. I'm reading something big moving through the station. Fast." Wu already had his weapon drawn. "Orders, sir." Han watched the panic around him. The Council's military forces were mobilizing, but he could see the fear in their movements. These were trained soldiers, but even they knew what it could do. In the past century, attacks had killed over 3,000 people across the galaxy. Through the chamber's speakers, reports continued to come in. They had killed 3 security drones. It had torn through two blast doors. Conventional weapons weren't slowing it down. The military commander, a tall creature named, was coordinating the response. His translator carried his clicking speech to everyone nearby. "We'll use plasma cannons. Set up a crossfire in Corridor 7. When the creature enters the kill zone, we fire everything." Ambassador had rejoined the human group. His face was pale but composed. "Captain, we should evacuate with the others." Han nodded slowly, but his mind was racing. He pulled up the live feed from the security cameras on his wrist device. The images showed the moving through the corridors, and something about it bothered him. "Hey, are you seeing this?" The lieutenant looked at the feed. She enhanced the image, zooming in on the creature's movements. Her eyes widened. "Captain, look at its behavior pattern." Bo Young leaned in to see. "That's not hunting behavior." Han saw it too. It wasn't stalking. It wasn't looking for prey. It was running, its movements erratic and uncoordinated. When it encountered the security drones, it had lashed out defensively, not aggressively. And the way it kept changing direction, doubling back on itself. "It's scared," Hay said quietly. "It's lost and terrified." Commander was still barking orders. His forces were setting up the kill zone. Heavy weapons were being positioned. The estimate was 40% casualties among his troops, but the would-be eliminated. Han looked at his crew. Then he looked at the panicking council members. Finally, he looked at the security feed showing the confused, frightened creature tearing through the station. On Earth, humanity had learned hard lessons about fear and violence. For thousands of years, humans had encountered dangerous predators. Lions, tigers, bears, crocodiles, sharks. They had learned that killing wasn't always the answer. Sometimes understanding worked better. "Ambassador," Han said, his voice steady, "I need you to contact Commander. Tell him to hold his fire." The old diplomat stared at him. "Captain, you can't be serious." "I'm very serious." Han turned to his crew. "Hey, Bo Young, you're with me. Wu, stay here and coordinate with the station. If this goes wrong, make sure someone gets our logs back to Earth." Wu's face showed concern, but he nodded. "Sir, what are you planning?" Han checked his sidearm, then deliberately holstered it. "We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to make a friend." The human crew moved toward the door while around them. The rest of the galaxy ran the other way. The corridors of the council station were empty now. Everyone had evacuated to the safe zones. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow that made the metallic walls look like they were bleeding. Somewhere in the distance, Han could hear the heavy footsteps of the echoing through the passages. Lieutenant Hay walked beside him, her eyes fixed on her. She had access to the station's environmental controls and was studying everything she could find about biology. Dr. Bo Young followed closely, his medical scanner sweeping continuously for life signs. "I'm reading elevated stress hormones in the creature," Bo Young reported, keeping his voice low. "Its heart rate is extremely high. These are all signs of panic, not aggression." "That matches what we're seeing in its movement patterns," Hay added. She pulled up more data. "Captain, look at this. In their natural habitat on Prime, live in social groups called clusters. They're actually quite peaceful when left alone. The attacks on other species only happen when they're isolated or threatened." Han absorbed this information as they moved deeper into the station. Through his communicator, he could hear Commander arguing with Ambassador about the human plan. The alien commander thought they were insane. Honestly, Han couldn't blame him. "How far?" he asked. 200 meters ahead," Bo Young answered. "It stopped moving. I think it's cornered itself in the junction of corridors 12 and 13. They rounded a corner and saw it. The Council's forces had been right to be afraid. It was enormous, even larger than the descriptions had suggested. Its 8 legs were braced against the walls, the razor-sharp claws leaving gouges in the metal. Its armored body gleamed in the red emergency lighting. The mandibles clicked together constantly, dripping with venom that hissed when it hit the floor. But what struck Han most was the creature's eyes. It had 6 of them arranged in pairs around its head, and in those eyes he didn't see a monster, he saw fear. "It's cornered," Hay whispered. "That's the most dangerous situation. Any animal is more likely to attack when it feels trapped." "Then we don't trap it," Han said. He took a step forward, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. "We give it a way out." Through his communicator, he could hear the council chambers erupting in protest. The live feeds from his crew's cameras were being broadcast to every screen on the station. Millions of beings across the galaxy were watching what the humans were about to do. Commander's voice crackled through. "Captain Han, you are putting the entire station at risk. Stand down immediately." "With respect, Commander, we're already at risk," Han replied calmly. "Your plasma cannons might kill but not before it kills dozens of your troops. We're offering another option." He took another step forward. They noticed him now. Its head swiveled, all 6 eyes focusing on the small human approaching. A low chittering sound came from its mandibles. Han's translator couldn't make sense of it, but the tone was clear enough. It was a warning. "Easy," Han said softly, even though he knew the creature couldn't understand his words. Tone mattered more than language. Every human who had ever calmed a frightened dog or a spooked horse knew that. "Nobody's going to hurt you." Behind him, Hay was working on her. She accessed the station's atmospheric controls and began adjusting the chemical composition in their section. "I'm releasing calming pheromones," she explained quietly. "The station uses them to help different species coexist peacefully. I'm adapting the formula for biology." Bo Young continued monitoring. "Its stress levels are still high, but they're starting to plateau. Keep doing what you're doing, Captain." Han took another step. He was now only 10 meters from close enough to see the individual plates of its armor, close enough to smell the acidic tang of its venom. Definitely close enough to die if this went wrong. The shifted its weight, and for a moment Han thought it would charge, but instead it made a different sound. Still chittering, but higher pitched, more desperate. "That's a distress call," Hay said suddenly. "I've heard similar sounds from social insects on Earth. It's calling for its cluster. It wants help." Understanding flooded through Han. This creature wasn't angry. It was lost and alone, separated from everything familiar, surrounded by strange sights and sounds and smells. It had lashed out at the drones because it was terrified. It had run because it was trying to find its way home. "You're a long way from your family, aren't you?" Han said gently. He crouched down slowly, making himself smaller and less threatening. "It's okay. We're going to help you." He raised one hand, palm out. On Earth, the gesture meant peace. He had no idea if it meant anything to but the slow, deliberate movement was universal. No sudden moves, no aggression. The watched him. Its mandibles clicked more slowly now. The venom drips were becoming less frequent. Hay's pheromones were working, but more than that, the creature was responding to Han's calm presence. "That's it," Han murmured. He extended his hand further, still moving with careful slowness. "See, I'm not going to hurt you." Through his communicator, he could hear chaos. Ambassador was trying to explain human history with animal domestication. Commander was demanding they abort. Scientists from a dozen species were shouting theories and warnings. But Han blocked it all out. Right now, there was only him and The creature tilted its head, studying him with those 6 alien eyes. Han had seen that look before. In the lions he'd visited at a wildlife preserve. In the wolves he'd tracked in the Canadian wilderness. In the great white shark he'd observed from a diving cage. It was the moment of decision. Fight or trust. "Come on," Han whispered. "Let's be friends." He moved his hand closer, just a few centimeters. They could easily bite it off if it wanted. But Han kept his breathing steady, his body language open and calm. He thought about every documentary he'd ever watched about animal behavior. every story he'd heard about trainers forming bonds with dangerous creatures. Humans had been doing this for thousands of years. It was time to prove that those skills worked on a galactic scale. The leaned forward slightly. Its mandibles opened, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Han's heart was pounding, but he didn't move. He kept his hand steady. And then, slowly, carefully, the closed its mandibles and pressed its armored head against Han's palm. The station went completely silent. Every being watching held their breath. Hay and Bo Young stood frozen behind their captain. Somewhere in the council chambers, an alien fainted. Han's hand rested on the head of the most dangerous predator in the known galaxy. The armor was warm to the touch, smoother than he'd expected. He could feel a faint vibration through the plates. "Good," he said softly, beginning to stroke gently. "That's good, you're doing great." They made a new sound, low and rumbling like distant thunder. Its 8 legs relaxed slightly, the claws retracting just a bit. Bo Young's scanner beeped. "Captain, its stress hormones are dropping rapidly. Heart rate is stabilizing. This is working." Han continued the gentle stroking, his movements careful and consistent. He found a spot behind what he assumed were the creature's sensory organs, and when he scratched there lightly, the rumbling grew louder. "Is it?" Hay started, her voice full of wonder. "Is it purring?" "I think it is," Han replied, a smile spreading across his face. He looked up at the nearest security camera. "Commander, you can stand your forces down. I think we've made first contact." The most feared predator in the galaxy leaned into the touch, like a cat seeking attention. And humanity had just shown the council something they'd never seen before. The walk back to the council chamber was surreal. Captain Han led the way, and they followed him like a loyal pet. Its 8 legs moved with surprising grace when it wasn't panicking. The rumbling purr continued, echoing through the empty corridors. Behind them, Lieutenant Hay and Dr. Bo Young documented everything with their scanners and cameras. "This is incredible," Bo Young muttered, watching the creature. "Its entire biochemistry has shifted. The aggression hormones are almost gone. It's displaying all the markers of a bonded social animal." "How long did that take?" Hay asked. 20 minutes. 18 minutes and 43 seconds, Bo Young confirmed. 18 minutes to turn the galaxy's most feared predator into this. There was now walking so close to Han that it occasionally bumped him with its armored head, seeking more attention. Each time, Han would reach up and scratch behind its sensory organs, and the purring would intensify. When they reached the council chamber, they found it packed. Every representative had returned, along with hundreds of others. Scientists, military officers, diplomats, and reporters from across the galaxy. They stood in absolute silence, staring at the impossible sight. A human walking calmly with a commander approached cautiously, his weapons still drawn but lowered. The commander's antennae were vibrating rapidly, which Han had learned indicated extreme agitation or confusion. "What? What did you do?" "We talked to it," Han said simply. He noticed the tensing at all the attention and kept his hand on its head, stroking gently. "Well, not with words, but we communicated." Ambassador stepped forward, his expression a mix of pride and disbelief. "Captain, do you understand what you've just done? Have been classified as uncontrollable killing machines for over 2 centuries. Military forces across the galaxy have protocols that state the only solution to an encounter is complete elimination." "Then the protocols were wrong," Hay said, stepping up beside her captain. She held out her, displaying screens of data. "They aren't mindless killers. They're social creatures that become aggressive when isolated or threatened. Look at the behavioral data. Every recorded attack happened when individuals were separated from their clusters or when they were cornered." A small alien with purple skin and large eyes pushed through the crowd. She wore the insignia of the Council's Science Division. "I am senior. I have studied for 30 years. What you're suggesting is impossible." "And yet," Bo Young said, gesturing to the currently nuzzling Han's hand. "Here we are." Approached slowly, her scanner active. She circled the carefully, studying it from every angle. The creature watched her but made no aggressive moves. "The biochemical readings. I don't believe it. This is exhibiting social bonding patterns." "How?" "Humans have thousands of years of experience with this," Han explained. He continued petting thee as he spoke. "On Earth, we evolved alongside dangerous predators. We didn't just survive them, we learned to understand them. We turned wolves into dogs. We domesticated cats, horses, even elephants. We learned that most creatures aren't naturally aggressive. They're just scared or defending themselves." Another voice called out from the crowd, "But have killed thousands." "Because everyone approaches them with weapons and fear," Hay replied. She pulled up more data on her pad. "Look at these incident reports. In every case, there was in an unfamiliar environment surrounded by hostile forces. Of course it attacked. It was fighting for its survival." A tall crystalline being floated forward. Han recognized the species from his briefings. "We're one of the Council's founding members, known for their logical approach to problems. Your theory is interesting, Human Han, but this is a single data point. One success does not prove a pattern." "You're right," Han agreed. He looked down at the which was now lying down with its head resting on his feet. "But it's a start, and it's better than the current approach of killing every we encounter." Ensign Wu pushed through the crowd, carrying a data chip. "Captain, I have the complete recording of the encounter. And sir, you should see the galactic net. This footage has already been shared across 600 systems." Han took the chip but didn't look away from the assembled council. He could feel the weight of their attention. This was about more than just one. This was about changing how the entire galaxy thought about dangerous species. "I have a proposal," he said. "Let us help. Let humanity teach our methods of animal behavior and communication to your and security forces. We can show you how to read body language across species, how to recognize fear versus aggression, how to de-escalate instead of eliminate." "Ridiculous," someone shouted from the back. "Humans are newcomers. You know nothing of our galaxy." "Maybe that's exactly why we can help," Ambassador interjected. The old diplomat stepped forward, his voice carrying the authority of decades of experience. "We come with fresh eyes and different methods. Your galaxy has been solving problems the same way for thousands of years. Perhaps it's time to try something new." Commander's antennae were still vibrating, but now he seemed more thoughtful than agitated. "My soldiers die in encounters with dangerous species every year. If there's even a chance your methods could save lives—" He paused, looking at the peaceful. "I would like to see more evidence, but I'm willing to listen." The was now crouched next to the, running her scanner over it while the creature ignored her completely, focused entirely on Han. "The neural patterns are remarkable," she said. "It's formed a genuine bond with you, Captain. The trust markers are identical to what I've seen in domesticated species across the galaxy." "What are you going to do with it?" another voice called out. "You can't just keep it as a pet." Han hadn't thought about that. He looked down at the creature which gazed back with those 6 eyes. In just under 20 minutes this terrifying predator had become, what? A companion, a friend. "We need to give it a name," Wu said with a grin. "Lucky," Bo Young suggested. "Because it was lucky we were here instead of a plasma cannon squad." The now named Lucky made a contented rumbling sound at hearing the attention on it. Its tail, which Han hadn't noticed before, was actually wagging slightly. A commander said slowly, "Is wagging its tail. I never thought I would see such a thing in my lifetime." The floated closer, its crystalline body refracting the chamber lights into rainbow patterns. "I move that we grant the human delegation provisional status to establish an advisory position on relations. Their methods, while unconventional, have shown measurable results." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Some species seemed supportive, others were clearly skeptical. but Han noticed that none of them could look away from Lucky. The evidence was right in front of them, impossible to deny. Ambassador seized the moment. The Republic of Korea and the Human Federation would be honored to serve the Galactic Council in this capacity. We can establish training programs, create new protocols, and share our knowledge freely. A vote was called. The process was complex, with different species having different weights based on various treaties and agreements that Han didn't fully understand. But when the count was finished, the result was clear. The motion passed. Humanity had found its place in the galactic community, not through military might or technological superiority, but through something much simpler: the ability to extend a hand to a frightened creature and say, "It's okay, I'm here to help." Lucky looked up at Han and purred. The captain smiled and scratched behind the creature's sensory organs. "Welcome to the team, Lucky. I think you and humanity are going to do great things together." The galaxy watched and slowly began to learn that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose compassion over violence. 3 weeks had passed since the incident with Lucky, and the Galactic Council Station had transformed into something unexpected. What started as a diplomatic mission had become a full-scale educational initiative. The Human Relations Center now occupied an entire wing of the station, with staff arriving from Earth weekly to help with the growing demand. Lieutenant Hay stood in front of a classroom filled with from 20 different species. On the screen behind her, footage played of various Earth animals displaying different emotional states: a dog wagging its tail, a cat with flattened ears, a horse pawing the ground nervously. "The key," she explained, "is learning to read the subtle signals. Every species has ways of communicating their emotional state. You just need to know what to look for." A scientist raised one of its 3 arms. "But human lieutenant, how can we apply Earth animal behavior to alien species? The biology is completely different." Hay smiled. "The biology might be different, but the principles are universal: fear, aggression, curiosity, contentment. These emotional states exist across species because they serve survival purposes, and they manifest in recognizable ways: defensive postures, stress vocalizations, relaxation signals. Once you train your eye, you can see them everywhere." She switched the display to show footage of Lucky from that first encounter. "Watch the here. See how its legs are braced against the walls? That's a defensive posture. Now look at its eyes. They're dilated, scanning constantly, and the mandibles are clicking rapidly. All signs of stress and fear, not aggression." The class watched intently. The senior, who had been studying for 30 years, sat in the front row taking notes. She had become one of Hay's most enthusiastic students, eager to apply these new methods to her research. In another room, Dr. Bo Young taught a medical class about stress hormones and biochemical markers. His students were medical officers from across the Council's military forces, learning how to identify when a creature was in distress versus when it was genuinely dangerous. "The readings tell the story," Bo Young said, displaying charts on his screen. "Look at these hormone levels. This is Lucky during the containment breach. See the spike in cortisol-equivalent chemicals. That's pure panic. Now look at these readings from 5 minutes after Captain Han made contact. The levels drop dramatically." A 6-armed medic raised a question. "Dr. Bo Young, in field conditions, we don't always have time for detailed scans. How do we assess quickly?" "Good question," Bo Young replied. "That's where combining medical knowledge with behavioral observation becomes critical. You look at breathing patterns, vocalizations, body positioning. The scan confirms what your eyes should already be telling you." Down the hall, Ensign Wu led a very different kind of class. His students were security officers and military personnel, and they were learning something that went against all their training: how not to fight. "De-escalation," Wu explained, "is about removing threat from the equation. Most dangerous animals don't want to fight. They want to feel safe. Your job is to help them feel that safety. A veteran, a reptilian species missing one eye, spoke up. But Security Officer Wu, I have lost many comrades to dangerous creatures. They attacked without provocation. Without provocation that you saw, Wu corrected gently. Remember, we're learning that what looks like aggression is often fear. Your presence itself might have been the provocation. Your weapons, your numbers. The creature felt cornered and fought back. He pulled up a tactical scenario on the screen. Now, I'm not saying every situation can be resolved peacefully. Sometimes you have to defend yourself. But I am saying that force should be the last option, not the first. The veteran considered this. Show me an alternative approach to Scenario 7, the one where we lost 15 soldiers to a thornback last year. Wu pulled up the incident report and began breaking down what different choices might have looked like. The class watched, and slowly, understanding began to dawn. In the center's main atrium, Captain Han met with Ambassador and a rotating group of council representatives. Lucky lay on the floor beside Han's chair, occasionally lifting its head for attention. The had become a fixture at these meetings, and its presence served as a constant reminder of why the work mattered. The results are impressive, said the representative, its crystalline body shimmering. In the past 3 weeks, we've had 7 incidents with supposedly dangerous species across Council space. In all 7 cases, the new protocols were applied. 0 fatalities, 6 successful peaceful resolutions. And the 7th, asked Ambassador. The creature was genuinely rabid, infected with a neural parasite. It had to be put down, but the new protocols allowed our forces to confirm this was necessary rather than simply assuming all aggressive behavior meant a death sentence. Commander entered the atrium, his antennae waving in what Han had learned was a sign of excitement. Captain, I have news. The Council has voted to expand your program. We want to establish human relations centers on 12 major stations across Council space. Han felt a surge of pride but also concern. Commander, we only have so many trained personnel. We're already stretched thin. Which is why, said another voice, we're going to train our own people in your methods. Entered the room, followed by several other. We've been learning from Lieutenant He. Now we want to become teachers ourselves. We can adapt human methods to work with species-specific knowledge. Combine your fresh perspective with our deep understanding of galactic biology. A hybrid approach, He said, entering with her class on a break. Human principles applied through local expertise. I think it could work. Lucky stood up and walked over to who had been spending time with the everyday. The creature nuzzled her hand, and she scratched its head with the confidence of someone who had overcome decades of fear. 3 weeks ago, I would have run from this creature. Now I understand it. That's the power of what you've taught us. The spoke again. There is more. We've been analyzing the galactic database of dangerous species. There are 47 species currently classified as eliminate on site. We would like to begin systematic reviews of each classification using your methods. Han looked at Lucky, then at his crew, then at the diverse group of aliens who had gathered in the atrium. 47 species. That's a lot of misunderstanding to correct. But it's possible, Bo Young said. We've proven that. Lucky was supposed to be unkillable, unstoppable, unreasonable. Look at it now. The hearing its name perked up and made a happy chirping sound. It had started making new vocalizations in the past week, sounds that no had ever been recorded making before. Hay theorized they were social communication attempts, the creature trying to interact with its new cluster. There's something else you should know, Commander said. Word of your methods has spread beyond the Council. We're receiving requests from independent systems, corporate entities, even from species not yet part of the Council. Everyone wants to learn. Why? Wu asked. I mean, why now? The Council has existed for thousands of years. Why are our methods suddenly so important? The veteran security officer who had questioned Wu earlier answered. Because we've been doing things the same way for those thousands of years. Fight or flee, kill or be killed. Your species showed us there was a third option. Understand and befriend. It's revolutionary. Ambassador stood, his expression serious. This is a tremendous responsibility. Humanity is being asked to help reshape how the galaxy approaches conflict with dangerous species. Are we ready for that? Han looked around the room. At He, who had transformed xenobiology into a tool for peace. At Bo Young, who had proven that science could serve compassion. At Wu, who taught warriors how to protect without killing. At Lucky, proof that even the most feared creature could become gentle given patience and understanding. Ready or not, Han said, this is happening, and I think we can do it, not alone but together. He gestured to and the other alien scientists. This isn't just a human achievement, it's becoming something bigger, a new way of thinking about our place in the universe. Lucky walked to the center of the group and lay down, its purr filling the atrium like gentle thunder. Around it, beings from across the galaxy stood together, united by a simple but powerful idea. Fear could be transformed into friendship. Violence could give way to understanding. And sometimes, all it took was someone brave enough to reach out their hand and say, "Let me help you." The galaxy was changing, one gentle touch at a time. 3 months after the day Captain Han first touched the Galactic Council held a special session. The chamber was packed even more than usual. Representatives from systems across the galaxy had come to witness history being made. Ambassador stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of alien faces. Behind him, a massive screen displayed the symbol of the newly established Relations and Understanding Institute. The symbol was simple but meaningful, a human hand and an alien appendage reaching toward each other. Honored members of the Galactic Council, began, his voice carrying through the chamber. 3 months ago, we came here hopping to join your community. We were prepared to demonstrate our technology, our military capabilities, our economic potential. Instead, we ended up showing you something quite different. On the screen, footage played. Lucky approaching Han for the first time, the leaning into his touch, the moment that had shocked the galaxy. Today, I'm pleased to report on the success of the Relations Initiative, continued. In 3 months, we've seen remarkable changes. The screen changed to show statistics. Encounter incidents with dangerous species had dropped by 78% across Council space. Casualties in those encounters had fallen by 92%. Species previously classified as eliminate on site were being successfully relocated and studied. But the numbers only told part of the story. Lieutenant Hay stood in the back of the chamber with a group of she had trained. Among them was, who now led the research program. Together, they had made discoveries that changed everything scientists thought they knew about the species. We found 7 more specimens in isolation across the galaxy, was telling a reporter. All of them were classified as dangerous. Using the human methods, we've successfully calmed and relocated all 7. They're now in a specially designed habitat that mimics their natural cluster environment. For the first time, we're observing normal social behavior. It's beautiful. Dr. Bo Young stood with a group of medical officers near the chamber entrance. They were discussing a case from the previous week where a creature called A had been terrorizing a mining colony. Instead of sending in military forces, they had sent in a team trained in the new methods. The wasn't attacking, one of the officers explained. It was trying to communicate. The mining equipment was operating on frequencies that hurt it. Once we adjusted the frequencies, the creature became peaceful. It even helped us locate valuable mineral deposits using its natural sonar abilities. Ensign Wu was demonstrating proper approach techniques to a group of young security officers from various species. They practiced on training creatures, learning to read body language and respond appropriately. The old methods of rush-in with weapons ready were being replaced by a more thoughtful approach. Remember, Wu told his students, confidence is important, but so is respect. You're not going into battle. You're making first contact with another living being. Treat it with the dignity it deserves. In a corner of the chamber, Lucky rested on a specially designed platform that had become something of a celebrity across the galaxy. Children of a dozen species drew pictures of it. Scientists studied it. And most importantly, it had become a symbol of hope. Other creatures were present too. A thornback, its spike-covered back decorated with harmless padding, dozed peacefully next to Lucky. A crystalline hunter, its silicon-based body glittering like a living diamond, swayed gently to music only it could sense. These former apex predators were now ambassadors for their species, proof that understanding could bridge any gap. Captain Han stood with Commander, watching the proceedings. The commander had become an unlikely ally, enthusiastically supporting the new methods after seeing the results firsthand. My military academy is now requiring all officers to complete training in your methods, said. The most surprising result is that morale has improved. Soldiers feel better about their work when they're protecting life rather than taking it. That makes sense, Han replied. Killing takes a toll on anyone regardless of species. Creating connections instead of destruction, that feeds the soul. Ambassador was concluding his report. The Institute has now trained over 5,000 individuals from 112 different species. We've established centers on 15 major stations. And perhaps most importantly, we've changed the conversation. He paused, looking out at the assembled representatives. Instead of asking, how do we eliminate this threat, we now ask, how do we understand this being? That simple change in perspective has saved countless lives, both sentient and non-sentient. The representative floated forward to speak. The Council has made a decision. We are offering Earth full membership in the Galactic Council with a unique role. Humans will serve as the Council's official relations coordinators. Your methods, your perspective, and your gift for connection have proven invaluable. The chamber erupted in applause. Different species expressed approval in their own ways, clicking, humming, flashing lights, releasing pleasant scents. It was a symphony of celebration. But raised a hand for silence. We accept this honor with humility, but we must be clear about something. This isn't just a human achievement. What we've accomplished here has been a collaboration between humans and all of you. We brought the methods, but you brought the deep knowledge of galactic species and the willingness to try something new. Stepped forward to speak. The human saying is true, it takes a village. What we're building is a galactic village where every species contributes its unique strengths. Humans taught us to look past fear. Now we're teaching each other. Over the next hour, representatives took turns sharing success stories. A previously hostile species had been discovered to be suffering from a painful parasitic infection. Once treated, they became peaceful traders. Another aggressive species turned out to be protecting their young, which weren't aggressive at all. Trade routes that had been closed for centuries were reopening. Systems that had been isolated due to dangerous native wildlife were now safe to visit. The galaxy was connecting in ways that had never been possible before. As the session ended, Han walked onto the observation deck of the station. It was his favorite spot, offering a view of the stars and the constant stream of ships coming and going. Lucky followed him, as they always did now. The creature had imprinted on Han completely and refused to be separated from him for long. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" came a voice. Hay joined him at the window. "Look at all those ships, each one carrying beings from different worlds, all working together." Bo Young and Wu arrived moments later. The team that had started this whole adventure stood together, watching the galaxy turn. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we'd failed that day?" Wu asked. "If Lucky had attacked you?" Han reached down and scratched behind Lucky's sensory organs. The purred contentedly. "I try not to, but I think about what we learned. Fear makes monsters out of everyone. Understanding makes friends out of anyone. That should be the Institute's motto, Bo Young suggested. More people began arriving on the observation deck, and her research team, Commander and his officers, alien scientists and human trainers, and more creatures, thornbacks, crystalline hunters, and others. The former monsters of the galaxy, now companions and friends. Lucky stood up and walked to the center of the deck, looking around at all the gathered beings. Then it did something remarkable. It began to sing. The sound was unlike anything Han had heard from the before. It was melodic and complex, rising and falling in patterns that seemed almost like language. The other creatures joined in, each adding their own voice. The thornback's deep rumble, the crystalline hunter's tinkling chimes, the harmonic waves. "What are they doing?" someone asked. Hay was scanning with her, tears forming in her eyes. "They're calling their clusters, all of them. It's a song of reunion. They're saying they're not alone anymore." The beings on the observation deck, representing dozens of species from across the galaxy, stood together and listened to the song of creatures they had once feared. And in that moment, they understood what humanity had brought to the stars. Not weapons, not technology, not conquest. Connection. Ambassador stood at the window, watching a human ship arrive with more trainers and teachers aboard. "You know," he said to Han, "when we left Earth, I thought our greatest strength was our resilience, our ability to survive anything." "And now?" Han asked. "Now I know it's our empathy, our ability to see ourselves in others, even when those others are nothing like us. That's the real human superpower." Lucky finished its song and returned to Han, resting its massive head against his leg. The captain smiled and stroked the armored plates, marveling at how something so simple had changed everything. Across the galaxy, on worlds both civilized and wild, beings were learning that monsters were just friends they hadn't met yet. That violence could give way to understanding. That fear could transform into love. And it all started because one human had the courage to reach out his hand and pet the stars shone brightly through the observation deck windows, and somewhere in that vast darkness, more creatures waited to be understood. More connections waited to be made. More families waited to be formed. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or warriors, but as the species that taught the galaxy the most important lesson of all. Everyone deserves compassion, even the monsters. Especially the monsters. Because sometimes, the scariest thing in the universe just needs a friend.